Alright, so now that we've got a little bit of altitude, I will go back to my preferred piloting view here. View from the back. Let's do a few maneuvers. Throttle down, let's rotate this guy around. Not a lot of control surfaces here, no direct yaw control. There's no really good reason that I didn't put that in, but this is sufficient. Elevator, ailerons, we're good to go. We have two small ailerons right there on the wings, the second outboard sections. A little bit of a polyhedral in the airplane too to make it kind of roll stable. This mission would be impossible without Ferrum Aerospace, without the aero mod to KSP. Under stock KSP aerodynamics, as you go up in altitude, the fact that drag scales exponentially and lift scales linearly prevents any of this from happening. Your lift to drag ratio drops to near zero as you go up in altitude. So, gear down, we're going to perform a landing. Also, I guess it kind of goes without saying, if it's not pretty much close to noonish on whatever planet you're flying, you're not going to go very far. Requires solar power to stay level. This plane lands extremely well. In fact, just greases right on. We can apply the brakes to bleed some speed here. Turn the engines off. We've got this set to a hotkey. Handles a few bumps. The tricycle landing gear is brought on to keep it stable on the ground. That nose wheel is very far forward to keep from nosing over as easy as some other planes did. That's one of the problems I had with one of the prototypes. I landed it successfully, but then applied the brakes, and it immediately flipped over and killed the pilot. So, throw this parking brake on. Let's get out, plant a flag, and check to make sure we can get back into the vehicle if we ever make it to eve surface. So right-click, extend the ladder, get out of your seat, Bob. Let's go. I don't even know where Jebediah is right now. Probably somewhere out in the solar system. Who cares? Kerbal's a Kerbal. They're all great. All right, so down onto the ground, having a few trips. Might as well put a flag because we bother getting off. Plus, you get to see up. Oh, it's totally obscured. All right. Pose for a photo. Got it. And you get back on. So many times I've been to Eve and found out that I didn't have a ladder that would get me back close enough to get back on board. So, I want to avoid that frustration. Always test for it on Kerbin before you leave. Retract ladder. Here we go. Time to execute a takeoff from an unimproved strip because nobody's been to Eve to build a runway for us. So if we can't do this, we can't do it on Eve. Thankfully, I've done this test before, and assuming I don't screw it up, it should be fine. Brakes off. Now this is an interesting thing. Yeah, there we go. You have to throttle all the way back down before it'll let you move again. And there we are. Sufficient flight speed. Gear up. Let's hit a heading of 90 degrees so we can take off with the rotation of Kerbin. And we'll start our ascent. The batteries are there as just kind of a helpful buffer. They by no means have enough energy to get you up in altitude all by themselves. So they're really just there to help. Alright, let's level this thing out. Pitch up a little bit. I'm now hands off on the joystick. I think initially we have quite a strong pitch angle capability. Notice we are in fact gaining electricity at this point, so I will turn on leveler, pitch damping, dynamic control, whatever the A stands for. Throttle up till we just start burning electricity. There we go. Notice we're only at like 30% throttle, and we're still climbing. As we get up in altitude, we'll be able to throttle up because the power requirements of the propellers drop with density. And that's another reason why it's nice, and this all kind of works synergistically at high altitude. So, a long, steady, boring climb at only whatever that ascent rate is. Lift drag ratio of just under 4. And up and away we go. This part takes a little bit, but you're saving so much weight in DV as you let the sun pay for the ascent instead of rocket fuel. And the nice thing is you're not having to push all that extra rocket fuel through the air itself. Kind of the classic Tucholsky rocket equation, or Tchaikovsky, or whatever it's called. You know the one thing. The equation that specifies delta V required. That's founded in the fact that you've got to carry whatever fuel you need for the top of the ascent up with you from the bottom. That's one of the reasons why these rocket designs get exponentially so much bigger whenever you need a lot of dB. But this bypasses all that because the sun is providing us our energy as we need it. Just passing 3,000 meters. I'll probably edit a lot of this part out because it's boring and you just sit here and ascend for a while. See if I can throttle up any yet. Probably will be able to. Considerably. Okay, I will leave it just under the point at which I'm energy positive, so that way nobody will doubt that this could do it all on solar. The batteries, even though I have them, we're not burning them. Notice my energy in the top right, staying at 1615, full capacity. In fact, we're still gaining speed and gaining altitude. We're accelerating. We're going up faster and faster. Almost able to achieve full throttle. We're getting close. 5,000 meters. Sometimes I'll use time acceleration to make this happen a little bit faster, but it's okay. I'll be patient. As the density drops off, you'll see our coefficient of lift increase, and that will result in a better lift-to-drag ratio. So this actually achieves its optimal performance at the release location. It's at the top of its arc whenever it's finally at its optimal aerodynamic operating point. Now, one thing I can do to make this work a little bit better, in fact, it's really fun to watch, is I've got these landing gears staged next before the wings come off themselves. So to help in our ascent, now that we're getting up pretty high using a lot of power, I'm going to go ahead and jettison the landing gear. I know we're not going back home, or if we are, we're at least going to do it not on our belly. So here we go. Very, very cool. Really helps out with the required drag. Notice the lift to drag jumped up to 8. Much better. Our ascent rate jumped as well. So we've now transitioned to full ascent mode. There's no going back at this point. We've got to go to space today. I don't think I've ever actually taken this craft on Kerbin up to the highest that we go. I imagine we can probably get at least 13,000 meters, maybe a bit more. What are you so worried for, man? It'll be fine. Probably. Alright. Up and up and up we go. Pretty good lift-to-drag ratio, 8.9. Like I said before, if you tried this in stock Kerbal with stock aerodynamics that are completely false, since lift doesn't scale exponentially with drag, at this point you would not be able to achieve a suitable lift-to-drag ratio to continue your climb. I've done the math on that. Your lift-to-drag ratio drops to nothing, as you have to go faster at high altitudes to maintain dynamic pressure. In fact, we can show you that with equivalent airspeed setting on airspeed down. So now we're at 47 equivalent knots. If we were at sea level, we'd be flying 47 meters a second. But up at altitude, we're going over 100. Mach number now is 0.34. On Eve, that'll get to like 0.65. So surface 101 meters per second, just crossing 10,000 meters over Kerbin. My goodness. It's not an exciting ascent, but it sure is efficient. And it's rather graceful. It looks great. I love it. I wish the fire spitter hubs were not red. I wish they'd be more Kerbal color. But I'm not the modder. He can do whatever he wants. And here we go, just crossing 10,000. Still climbing strong. Angle of attack's getting quite large here. I might have to nudge this down a bit. Oh, yeah, minor stalling detected. We need to gain some speed, or else we will not be going higher. What is still stalled? Okay, back into normal flight. No stalling detected. Continuing the climb. Switch this over to keys, so that way I'll keep a better note on what we need. I think we're good down to what I had 47 earlier. No, 55 is pretty good margin here, so I can stand to pitch a little higher. Basically, the higher you tilt this plane up, the higher your ascent angle, the more energy you're burning per second to crawl your way into the sky versus that you're spending on drag. That's why it's essential to maximize lift to drag. Spend as little energy as you can pushing your airplane through the air so you can put the rest into the ascent rate. Because eventually, you're going to need it all just to hang there at the peak of your climb. Equivalent airspeed is getting a bit low, so I will have to nose it over a smidge. Keep that up. Oh, I think I've still got a bit of throttle left. Yeah, why didn't I use that? My goodness. Alright, we're at 100% throttle. Able to maintain charge because up here, the air is so low it does not take as much power to push the electric motors. Still climbing at about 10 meters a second. Decent ascent rate. We go for 13,000 meters. I believe I've achieved that here on Kerbin before. Getting close. $500 meters to go. So basically what's going to happen, I'm going to hit the next staging key. The wings jettison off immediately. All the struts holding them on go with them. The tail jettisons off, leaving us with only this central rocket body. 2 stages. The first one with 4 little ascent engines. It also has the gyro control that also controls aerodynamic trim. And then finally we jettison to the second stage, which if I turn on MechJeb and show you Delta V stats, well, there we go. First stage has 2274 meters per second of vacuum Delta V. Second stage is 3,171. Went through several iterations of the ascent stage here. This ended up being the best combination of slenderness for low drag, minimum weight, but still having a reasonably high Delta V at almost just shy of 6,000 meters per second of vacuum. In fact, check that, 5,500 because we cannot count the 541 that results from the electric part of the aircraft. That's a fictitious delta V due to the way they set up the electric motors. So really, it's just 5,445 meters per second, if I can add correctly in my head on the spot of the moment. All right, 13,000 meters. We're still climbing, though. Still climbing strong. But I'm going to go ahead and punch it. So the scenario here, since I can't quick save, is I will stage, will be in rocket mode, raise the apo, get out of the atmosphere as soon as I can, then I'll use the remaining juice to circularize. And, well, here we go. I'll do this a bit backwards just to get the glamorous picture, the glamorous shot. All right. All this time and work. Get it set to a hotkey so I can disable 2 of the motors and immediately pitch myself up with rocket thrust alone. Let's go vertical. Oh no, no! It's fine. Backflip. Happens. Alright, still going to space today. Good thing we're on Kerbin and we have lots of extra delta V. See the remainder of our aircraft going down towards the Earth. Serious dynamic pressure now. Let's go back to default speeds. So we're doing on the map. Apoapsis is at 67. We need a little bit more. It's up around 75. Still have decent fuel remaining in the ascent stage. So here we go. We'll just coast on this guy. Looking good for Kerbin, but this, as I said before, is not the real challenge. The real work will come from Eve. The X6 was able to achieve orbit on Kerbin, so it's almost child's play at this point for solar ascent craft. Gyro is exceptionally useful for orienting yourself. Guess we can turn off far. No longer need that. We're in space now. We're fairly close to it. Now, the advantage of doing this on Kerbin isn't that big. As a function of your total ascent, especially with FAR, Framerate Aerospace Research installed, the aerodynamic drag is not the biggest component. You've just got to get the kinetic energy in there eventually. But since we're designing this to do an Eve ascent, there it really, really, really matters. Let's go ahead and start applying some thrust to circularize. Okay. Let's really put the hammer down, get some acceleration going. And we're out. Time to stage. Thank you, Ascent. Good day. And well, you've all seen this part of the game before. We're basically at this stage just a rocket. A rocket waiting for orbit to circularize. There it is. I went too far. We're done. So with 2,300 meters per second remaining, we are in orbit. I can use that to sum up how much we actually used rocket fuel-wise to get up here. But we are looking good. And that's it. That is the test of the what is this, X8, X7? I don't even know which version this is. It's like X20 in reality. On Kerbin, the next spot, the full Eve descent and ascent again. Zappy Kerbal, he's even got enough fuel to return all the way back down. Unfortunately, no parachute. Parachute is not a necessary weight. Don't worry. Somebody will come get you someday.